we are going to have our discussion on our geography preparatory examinations for the preparation of November examinations. Right, we are going to go through a discussion of some typical examination questions in preparation for your examination so that we equip you with the right skills and also equip you with the knowledge that you might need in succeeding in your examinations for the end of year session. Right, we are going to focus on paper 2. We're going to focus on paper 2 topics. So we are going to use this sample paper to actually go through our discussion and try to focus on the key areas which are examinable and also try to figure out the best possible responses from the given questions. And as usual, always remember that when you're writing your end of year examinations, you are going to write a full examination paper, which is a full paper out of 150 marks. And that paper is going to be administered in 3 hours. The total length or the duration of the examination is in 3 hours time. You must be through with your paper. Right, so without wasting much of the time, let's go and analyze the content that you are supposed to be familiar with. We need to be well versed with the content and the topics which are examinable in paper 2. Right, so if we check, we're going to the content and try to figure out. We're going to look at population, which is a 60-mark question. And then we're also going to look at question number 2 in section A, which is a question on water resources. Then we're going to look at geographical skills and techniques, which is our last part on section B, which is a MEMO question with 30 marks. So the 3 questions, the first 2 having 60 each to make 120 for section A. Then we proceed to section B with 30 marks. We get a total of 150 marks for the whole paper. Right. So without wasting time, we are going to go through these typical questions and we are going to discuss as brief as is possible, just to give you an insight as to how you are supposed to approach the typical questions and also how best you can respond. You can give responses which are relevant to the given questions. Right. As usual, we're going to start with question number 1. Our question number 1, we understand that our focus area for the question is on population geography. Right. So it's question number 1. It's a matching call-up question, which wants us to match a description to the given geographical term. The number of people per square kilometer. Number of people per square kilometer. Which item matches with the number of people per square kilometer. We find that our number of people per square kilometer is our population density, which is G. Then where people live or how they are spread around the world. Where people live and how are they spread. That is population distribution. When a country loses professional people due to emigration, when the country loses skilled people, or professional people due to emigration, that is a situation of brain drain. Then the deliberate killing of people from a certain ethnic group or nation, the deliberate killing, that is a genocide. When people are being massacred, that's the genocide. A political migrant who is forced to migrate to another country. We are looking at someone who is fleeing from a political situation which is unconducive, right? That is a refugee, which is E. Then moving on to number 6, period during which a large number of babies is born. A large number of babies being born, that is what we call a baby boom, which is B. Political migrants who cannot return home. Those migrants cannot return home for given reasons. They are called exiles. They have fled from a conducive political situation and the situation is still prevailing such that they cannot risk their lives going back home. They are called exiles. The study of population statistics, we call it demographics, which is A. So those are the typical answers for the first part. We move on to the next part. Choose the correct words between the brackets to make the statement true. Is it birth rate or fertility rate, which is the average number of children born to each woman in her childbearing years? That is the fertility rate. Our fertility rate, we are looking at the number of children that an average woman can produce during her childbearing years. Women who are more educated tend to bear is it few or more children? We tend to find that the more the educated the woman is, the fewer the children they are likely to produce, because these women here are empowered, they are emancipated. Instead of them being childbearing machines, they have got some professionals that they engage in professional jobs, and also they are actively engaged in economic activity such that they do not have much time to have to focus on baby production. Right? Is it polygamy or polyandry, which is the practice of having more than one wife at the same time? That is polygamy. Then access, a lack of access to medical care, is it increasing or does it decrease the death rate? If you lack access to medical care, it increases the death rate. We are prone to suffer and die from some diseases because of lack of medication. Literacy rate is higher or lower in more economically developed countries as compared to less economically developed countries. If we check, we tend to find that the literacy rates, they are higher. Literacy rates, we are looking at the number of people who are able to read and write. Then illiteracy, we are looking at those people who are unable. So literacy, we are looking at those who are able. So it's higher in more economically developed countries than in. Is it contraception or vasectomy, which is a permanent method of prevention? The vasectomy is the permanent one. Contraception is temporal. Right. Infant mortality rate or death rate refers to the number of children who die before they reach the age of 5. Before the age of 5, we are referring to infants. So this infant mortality rate. That was question number 1.2. We move on to question number 1.3. It's a population pyramid. I think you understand how to interpret the population pyramid. It has got a classification of the different population groups according to age groups, from the lower ages going up to the highest ages, and it classifies the population into the male on the left side and the female on the right side, with respective numbers or percentages at the bottom and the age groups on the vertical axis, like what you can see there. Then our question is saying, what is a population pyramid? Basically, the question is asking you what you are seeing on that illustration there. So we can say it's a graph. It's a graphical illustration. When I'm referring to a population pyramid, we are saying it's a graphical illustration. In this instance, we're saying population pyramid. You can define it in simple terms. We are saying it's a graphical way of showing the population structure. The graphical way of showing the population structure of a country or a continent on age groups and gender groups. Age and gender groups. So we are looking at age structure. We are grouping our population into ages, and also we are looking at the different genders. How many males are there within the age group of 5 to 9, as an example? How many male, how many female in that age group? So we are actually using a graph to portray the structure of the population in terms of the age groups and also in terms of the gender classifications. That's the idea behind a population pyramid. Right, taking it on, we go on to the next part, which is our next question. The type of population pyramid shown above is it a progressive or is it a regressive? Right, if we check here, the upper part is declining. So it has a wider midpoint, and as it goes up to higher age groups, it declines. So basically, that kind of population pyramid is what we call a regressive pyramid. The shape of this population pyramid indicates, is it a high or low infant mortality rate and death rate? Is it high or low? It's actually, in that instance, it's a low infant mortality rate. Why do we have an low infant mortality? If you check the age groups of 0 to 4, there are just a few, but the graph increases as we go upwards. The one with a wider base and it regresses as we go up. It shows that there is a higher infant mortality, because if we have bigger numbers in the lower ages of 0 to 4, and then the numbers decline as we go upwards to 10, 14, 15, 19, it shows that there is high infant mortality in that particular country. Right. Calculate the total percentage of females aged between 0 to 14. Total percentage of females. What you need to do just here, you just have to add. You go to the age group of, the question is inviting us to find the 0 to 14. So 0 to 14, you tend to find that we are looking at this age group of people who are within the ages of 0 to 14. As a percentage, the percentage of females aged between 0 to 14. Calculate the total percentage of females aged between 0 to 14. So when expressing that as a percentage, we are supposed to do the calculations of the different age, the percentage of the population who are within that particular age group of the age of 0 to 14 years by adding the females in those age groups. So we are seeing our females here. On the female side, we have this 1.6, which is 0 to 4. We are looking at 0 to 14 here. We haven't reached our 14 mark. Then again, we have 1.9 from the age group of 5 to 9 years. Then again, we have 2.1 for us to reach 14, because our highest mark is the 14 mark. So we want from 0 to 14. So which means we encompass 1.6, 1.9, 2.1. So we are simply adding those figures. 1.6%, we add it to the next age group, which has got 1.9%, and then we add it to the last group, which has got 2.1%. So the total that we're going to get there, it gives us 5.6%. That's the percentage of females who are within the age group of 0 to 14. Right. Which age group represents the largest portion of the population in 2023? Which age group represents the largest portion of the population in 2023? The largest, you can just check and compare the relative bars here. If you can check our relative bars, I think they are more biased towards the 50 to 54. This one here, I think this is the one that has got the highest, the one which is the widest. You just check there, or if you compare by adding this side and this side, you will see. So that's the age group which has got the widest bar on the reading of our population pyramid. Right, we'll move on to the next question. Which gender lives longest in Japan? Which gender lives longest in Japan? Which means we just have to come on the top here and see which one is bigger. With the ages of around 90 to 94, we see that there are more females. The next age group, again, there are more females. And the last one, there's 0.1% females and 0.0 males who are above 100. So the justification is females are the ones who have got a longer life. Then explain why this is the case. Why do women live longer than males? That's the question. Right there, we can address things like the diet issue. Women tend to eat healthier compared to men. And also you can look at aspects like men working in hazardous environment. Most of the men, they work in hazardous environment and they do much of the hard jobs that will tend to affect their bodies and make them not last as long as women. And also we can look at other things like better lifestyles for women. Women usually choose better lifestyles compared to men. The lifestyle of men is usually risky. So we can look at those aspects and try to justify why women live longer compared to men. And also, we can look at the biological makeup of our bodies. It also contributes the biological differences, how the bodies are created. You also tend to find that it also contributes towards women living longer. Then it says demographers use population pyramids to calculate their country's dependence ratio. Why is it important for the country to know its dependence ratio? We are looking at those people who are to be supported by the economically active, either the young ones and the elderly ones. Why is it important for the country to know its dependence ratio? It's important for planning and decision making. Also, it's important maybe to address the issue of housing needs. You can also look at other aspects like to determine the labor force potential. And also you can talk of determination of needs. For households. If we know our dependence ratio, we can be able to do planning and also decision making. For example, if you are planning to assist the dependent, if we see that the ratio is too high, the working population is overburdened by the dependents, the government might need to plan and come out with a strategy of assisting those people who are dependent so that the working population is also assisted in a way. So also, for example, things like housing needs, there's also need for the government to plan according to the dependence ratios. If they know that there are too many people who are dependent, then they cannot fend for themselves, and also they have got special needs that are supposed to be catered for in terms of their welfare. Then it gives rise to the government's need to take consideration of such aspects. Right, then we move on to question number 1.4. It talks about overpopulation in India. Right, we're not going to go through the text, we're going to answer the questions. What evidence in the source indicates that India is overpopulated? The evidence that you can use there, if you can check, there's overcrowding. At the station, you see there is evidence there of overcrowding of people on the station there. So it implies that that country is overpopulated for the sake that you are seeing an image which is showing that the people are overcrowded. And also, if you check through the text, you might also find some other evidence. It says this is the second most populous country, which means compared to China, India is the second one. So it also gives a clue that it's highly populated. It's overpopulated because it is regarded as the second one in terms of the size of population. Right. According to the extract, what is the total population in India in 20? What was the total population in India in that particular year in 2011? That is an extraction question. It was exactly this much. 1,210,193,422. That's, you can see that it has actually crossed the 1 billion mark. It was ultimately 1.2 billion, 1,210,193,422. Right. So basically it's an extraction question. 1, 2, 1, 0, 1, 9, 3, 4, 2, 2. That was the size of the population in 2011. Describe two possible social issues that are leading to overpopulation in India. What might be the reasons for overpopulation in India? We can look at things like early marriages. What contributes towards high population like the one that is in India? There, we want to identify possible factors that could have contributed towards such a high population in a country like India. Talk of aspects like early marriages. If people are getting married at young ages, it means their chances of producing more children will also be high. Then you look at Limited contraception, or the knowledge of how to use the contraception might be limited. You look at aspects like improved food supply, look at aspects like illegal immigration can contribute. Look at aspects like improved medical care, all those factors. You look at factors that promote either high birth rate or that sustains longer life. They are the ones that contribute towards a high population growth in a given country. Or we can look at aspects like a decline in infant mortality. Those are contributing factors. Decline in the death rate. If the death rate is low, it means there is more people ultimately contributing towards the high population of a given country. And then the last question, 1.44, it says, in a paragraph of approximately 8 lines, explain the negative effects of overpopulation in a country and suggest steps that need to be taken in order to bring population under control. We are looking at the problems, typical challenges that we experience because of us having uncontrolled population growth and the problem of overpopulation. What can be done to solve the problem of overpopulation? That's the question in simple terms. Right. So we want to look at the effects first. How does it impact on the people and on the economy? The effects. Right now, looking at the effects of overpopulation, we need to analyze and look at things that do happen in a country. Like, for example, we look at things like overexploitation of resources. If we are highly populated, it means we have typical problems. Overpopulation, the effects. How does it impact? Negatively, we have over exploitation of resources. Resources are overexploited. And also, you can look at problems like congestion in cities. You can also look at aspects like high unemployment. Because there are too many people, the economy cannot grow at the same rate as the population such that it can provide enough jobs for the people. We can have breakdown of services. Services like water supply, electricity supply, they are overburdened. And as a result, they cannot be effectively functional. We look at housing shortages. Those are typical problems. We look at pressure on resources also leading to conflicts. It's a likely effect or wars because of having too many people. Those are the effects. And then we need to look at what can we do, steps that can be taken to reduce the problem. To avoid overpopulation, what can we do? There are some steps that can we take. We can look at steps like birth control measures. We try to institute birth control measures and make them available to people and educate people on how they must use those birth control measures. And also can make available contraception. It must be readily available, and in most instances must be for free so that we encourage people to use them. And also we can look at other practices like incentives for small families. The government can incentivize small families so that they encourage people to have smaller families. Then we can also look at other aspects like education, using education as a tool to make people aware of how they can actually engage themselves in safer birth control methods. Right. So looking at those, some of the aspects that we can put in place, or we can also look at encouraging family planning. Can be also another way that you can put in place to try and limit the growth of the population in a given country, right? Those are some of the measures that you can try to implement as a way of trying to reduce the size and the growth of the population in a given country. Right, we move on to the next part. Next part is a question on population movement below. We're not going to go through it. Explain the concept xenophobia. We're supposed to explain the concept xenophobia. Right, so xenophobia is basically, you can define it as unjustified fear, or we can say hatred from foreign nationals or people from other countries. That's xenophobia. It's unjustified fear. You just fear that you cannot associate with people from other countries, or you just hate people from other countries, which is unjustified. There's no specific reason which is valid there. What is the name of the commercial city that is located closer to Alexander? That is an extraction question. It talks about two controversial groups, the Alexandra Dudula movement and Operation Dudula, are campaigning against undocumented foreign nationals that have emerged. Right, if we go through our text, you tend to find that the commercial area that is being mentioned in this question is sending. That is our response. The commercial city is sending, according to the text. According to the extract, what's the meaning of the word dudula? What is the meaning of the word dudula? Right, dudula is a word in the Zulu language which loosely means push back or drive back. That's the meaning. So according to the extract, it's implying that foreigners must push back or must drive back. Give the main aim of the two groups that are mentioned in the extract. What are the main aims? They both hope to drive out undocumented African migrants from their communities. That's the hope. They hope to drive out undocumented African migrants from their communities. Then give the main aim of the two groups? We have done that. Why do people choose to move from their place of origin to go and stay in cities? That is an open question. The main driving factor is job opportunities. People want to get jobs in cities, and also people will be hoping for higher wages. It's another drive, and also better living conditions. Things like better infrastructure. We look at better facilities. We look at aspects like security. So those are some of the things that drive what you call the pull factors in urban areas. What attract people to urban areas? They need to go and look for job opportunities. They hope to get higher wages. It's secure in the cities. There are better living conditions, better health care, better school facilities and educational facilities, better amenities, all those facilities, provision of clean water, electricity, all those things. Right, explain 3 reasons for the outbreak of violence against foreign nationals in South Africa. The question is saying, explain 3 reasons for the outbreak of violence. What is the source of violence? Right. It is said poverty is the main driver of the tension. South African residents believe that, whether rightly or wrong, that foreigners are the cause of many of their difficulties. This is one of the causes. They blame the foreigners as the cause of their difficulties. And if you also check, it's a blame game that the people blame foreigners for their difficulties. And also you can look at people blaming foreigners for illnesses in the country. They blame the foreigners for bringing in foreign diseases. And also the main aim of foreigners taking their jobs. They accuse foreigners for taking their jobs. Can be another reason. And also they accuse foreigners for the high crime rate. They always associate crime with foreigners. So for that reason, it causes conflict. And also, ultimately, competition for housing or for facilities like education. There is some pressure there. And then you can also look at aspects like pressure on resources. Can be a source of conflict. If you have having pressure on resources, then we tend to blame that the pressure is being caused by the fact that there are many foreigners in the country. Right. So that takes us to the end of our first part. We move on to our water resources. And the next first question is question number 2.1.1. It says the primary source of water in South Africa. What is the primary source of water? The primary source, according to South African geographical situations, is rainfall. Then a physical factor that affects rainfall pattern in South Africa. Physical is natural. The physical factor here is climate change. Dash, the Dash is the largest river in South Africa. Which one is the largest river in South Africa? That's the Orange River. The number 4, the sector which uses the most water in South Africa is the H sector. Which sector uses most water in South Africa? It's agriculture. The number 5, a major challenge facing South Africa's water infrastructure. What is the challenge that is faced by South Africa's infrastructure in terms of water provision? Right. We have aging infrastructure. Is a typical problem. The infrastructure is aging, is old, and is no longer sustaining the demands of water. Inadequate funding. Also, the government is incapacitated to fund water supply projects, and also lack of maintenance. That is a typical problem. That is where we have our best water pipes. So it implies that all of the above, they constitute to be right responses. The main purpose of water storage facility in South Africa is to water storage facilities is to supply water during scarcity. The reservoirs, they are there to supply water during times of scarcity. Right. Then the province receives the most rainfall in South Africa. Which province receives the most rainfall in South Africa, according to South African geographical situations? That receives most rainfall. We are having it as KwaZulu-Natal on the east. Right, we move on to the next question. We are having those responses and we're going to use them to answer the questions. The practice of using water efficiently and reducing waste to minimize the amount of water used. What do we call that? That is water conservation. We are conserving water. Used water which is still clean is called gray water. Then moving water from one drainage basin to another, that is water transfer. Lack of sufficient water to meet demand, we have water scarcity. Then removing contaminants and pollutants from water to make it safe for use. If you want to make water safe for use, that is water treatment. A process of removing salt from seawater, we call that desalination. Saline for salt, and removing salt, desalination. Right. Then we have collecting and storing rainwater for non-potable uses, such as irrigation or toilet flushing. That is water harvesting. Then lastly, introduction of harmful materials into the water. that is water pollution. Right, that was our question number 2.2. Move on to the next question. Refer to the article on water pollution below. South African scientists use bugs in war against water hyacinth. Right. So the situation of water infestation by some invading plants, which is called the water hyacinth. Right. So you can see that weed there is covering up the water body, which is our heartbeat spot dam, is being covered with those invasive, those weed that invade the water bodies. So those ones are particularly called the water hyacinths, and they pose a very negative implication on the ecosystem in particular water bodies like the dams and in the rivers. Right. Checking on the questions. So the first question is saying, name the dam that is invaded by the hyacinth weed. I think it's indicated here. It's talking about the heartbeat spot. That is the dam that is in question, the heartbeat spot. Give two main causes of pollution in this dam as mentioned in the article. We are supposed to look at the article and look at the mentioned pollutants in that particular. It can be attributed to pollution with sewage and also with industrial chemicals, and also it's polluted with the heavy metals and also litter. So those are the main pollutants which are contributing towards the pollution of the heartbeat spot dam. How do pollutants promote growth of hyacinth weed? Right, the hyacinth, remember we said it's a weed which invades the water body. So ultimately it grows because of the addition of nutrients in the pollutants. Pollutants such as fertilizer or other pollutants with nutrients, if fertilizers used for agriculture are washed into the dam, they give nutrients to the water hyacinth weed and it grows effectively. So it's mainly because of the nutrients in the pollutants, and also sewage. It breaks down, it gives rise to nutrients which can be effectively utilized by the invasive wind in the water in the form of water hyacinth. So we end up having such typical problems because of the nutrients being added to the water, which will facilitate the fast growth of such a weed, and it will end up invading the whole water body. Right. The next question is saying, according to the article, how does the invasion of hyacinth weed impact negatively on the nearby communities? On the nearby communities. But if we just try to check, nutrients in the pollutants act as fertilizers for the weed. That is the response. Big communities, devastating livelihoods. Right. So if we check, both aren't going anywhere. It's affecting tourism in our town, tourist jobs. Right. So we are looking at a situation here that the boats are not going anywhere because of this. It's affecting tourism in the town. And also it implies that the tourist jobs are also affected. So it's affecting the very critical sector, which is tourism. And also because of that, the workers in the sector are also affected. And business also is coming to a standstill because of the carpet of the water hyacinth. Related businesses to activities involved in leisure in the dam, they are also brought to a standstill because of the invasion of the dam by the hyacinth. So it poses a very negative implication on tourism, on businesses, and also it ultimately affects the jobs of people involved in such sectors. Right. Then the next question is talking about suggest ways in which water managers can reduce the negative impact of alien species on water availability in the area. What can be done to reduce the implication of us having so much pollutants that are going to cause the growth of those alien plants? Right. So that is number 2.3.5. I'll just highlight some strategies here. We can try to decrease the use of pesticides and also the use of herbicides. You can also look at buffering the catchment areas of the rivers. We put demarcation so that we do not allow human activities to interfere with the water bodies, such that we are assured of clean water supply in the main water bodies that we need to use and benefit from. We can also look at managing dumping. In this instance, we are trying to reduce illegal dumping, which contributes towards the waste into the river that promotes the invasion of the water by the foreign alien plants. And also we can do water testing to check the quality and also try to find ways of rectifying the quality in terms of its contents. And also we can look at maintaining water purifying plants. They must always be regularly maintained to ensure that water is purified. And also we can look at afforestation as a way of trying to promote clean water. And most importantly, we can use education, awareness campaigns to conscientize the people about the need to conserve our water reserves and our water sources. Then we can also look at reduction of deforestation. Right, those are some of the measures that can be put in place to try and deal with such a typical problem that is faced in the community, that faces the community because of excessive nutrients in the water that promote the development of such weeds in the water. Refer to the cartoon below on water saving techniques. Those are some of the techniques that you can use. I think you can highlight, you can see the different techniques that are highlighted there that can help in saving water. The water conservation techniques that can be put in place, for example, that you are seeing here, we are looking at fixing leakages, and also we are looking at watering our plants using conservative methods and also using sustainable methods and all those ones. Right, let's go to our questions. What is a renewable or non-renewable resource? The only difference here between a renewable and a non-renewable, we look at it, is water a renewable resource? We look at it, the capacity of water in terms of its regeneration. Can water regenerate? Can we reuse water? Can it recycle itself? So water, we can safely say is a renewable. If it's properly managed, water can recycle itself to the water cycle, and we can reuse the water, it can regenerate. Name 2 ways in which water is used by people at their homes. There is a lot that you can mention there. For domestic purposes, talk of drinking, talk of bathing, talk of washing, talk of cooking, all those activities. Washing clothes, talk of watering the garden, all those activities is a general question, which is at domestic level. Why is it difficult for the government to provide free basic water? Right, free basic water, we know that the Constitution entitles every household to receive free basic water, some amount of free basic water, but the government is failing to do such. What are the challenges that the government is failing, is meeting, which makes it impossible for the attainment of free basic water provision? We look at aspects like the spread out of rural communities. Rural communities are spread out. It becomes difficult to supply water, to supply piped clean water. For that reason, it's expensive. Then also have typical problems of pollution. The water bodies are being polluted such that we no longer have safe water to supply to the households. It also budgetary constraints. It also faces budgetary constraints in terms of money. The government is incapacitated. It does not have enough money to fund such projects. And also we can look at theft of water infrastructure. Water infrastructure, the water infrastructure is being damaged, it is being stolen, such that the government is faced with a serious challenge. Right, then it says, describe the 3 water saving techniques that are depicted in the cartoon. We just have to relate to the cartoon. This one here, the first one that we are seeing, it is referring to, you are seeing this is a spanner, and you are seeing that's a tape there. it implies that what must we do? We must fix leakages. Whenever there are leakages, they must be fixed. We must fix both dripping taps and also leaks. Right, then this one here is talking about what? You can see that there are some plants there, and there is a watering can being used to water the plants, as we can see there. So we can safely say use watering can instead of in the position of a hose pipe. A hose pipe consumes more water than if you are using a watering can. So it's more advisable that we use the watering can instead of using the hose pipe. In its place, let's use the watering can. Then if we check this one here, what does it say? What's the technique for this particular methods? We are seeing that in this instance, we are having we can talk of using bath water. What we are saying in this instance, we are saying we can use instead of in this technique, we are saying we are using the watering can to reduce the amount of water which has been used, and also to avoid using excessive water through hose pipe. Then if you check here, it's also advisable that we use for brushing teeth, we use a cup for brushing our teeth. This is a toothbrush, and this is a cup. Instead of us using the direct tap for our brushing our teeth, and also leaving the tap running while we are brushing the teeth, we are advisable that we can use and also close the tap when not in use. It's a technique that you can also use using the shower, which saves water in that instance. Right. So you can look and advise, use some of the techniques that have been highlighted there. Suggest 2 government initiatives that can be used to secure South Africa's scarce water supply in future. What can we do for South Africa? Let's build more dams for storage purposes. And also, what can we do? We can engage in desalination to use seawater so that we have enough water supply. We can also look at recycling water. It's advisable. We can also look at techniques like engage in cloud seeding, try and enhance amount of rainfall. We can look at activities like water harvesting, rainwater harvesting. We can engage in harvesting rainwater. We'll also look at other aspects involving groundwater extraction through boreholes. For example, boreholes, we can also try to engage such methods of getting water so that we are assured of water supply in the future. Right, those are some of the measures that you can look at. Refer to the newspaper article below on floods. It talks about a flood situation in Khayelitsha. Define the term flood. Flood, we are referring to a situation here when large amount of water covers parts of the land. That are not usually underwater. So we are referring to a situation whereby we have a large amount of water getting into contact with the ground surface that is not usually drained by large amounts of water. So we are looking at a situation whereby the water bodies have reached over exceeded their maximum carrying capacity, and the water overfloods into the adjacent land, and that is a situation of flooding. Then the question says, what caused flooding in Khayelitsha? That is an extraction question. Flooding, we understand, is facilitated by us receiving heavy rainfall. So that's the major contributor of flooding in this instance. Flooding is attributed to heavy rainfall. Then how did the flood affect residents? Residents, mostly they lost their homes. Homes are washed away in the floods. And also in that instance, the sheikhs are flooded. We can also relate to belongings in those sheikhs. You see these guys, they are submerged in water. The sheikhs are covered, the whole bottom part in water. So they lost their belongings in that instance and also lost homes, and also their way of livelihood will be disturbed. Give one reason why informal settlements are more affected by floods. Why is it that floods are more prominent in informal settlements? One of the reasons is they are developed in low-lying areas, in flood-prone areas. So because there's no proper planning, the people just settle themselves anyhow, and mainly they settle themselves in those risky areas which are on the flood line. And as a result, flooding will persist and will be a typical problem on them. Then also we can look at unplanned street patterns that do not allow for effective drainage of water. And also why are they affected is also lack of drainage systems. In the informal systems, in settlements, we don't have drainage systems there, don't have pipes to drain out water. So as a result, the water just overflows over the area and cause flooding problems. Then you can also look at the nature of building material. They are affected mainly because of poor quality building material. Those sheikhs, they cannot resist floods, and as a result, those people are negatively affected. Their homes are taken away because they cannot resist the effect of the floods. Then it says in the last question, in a paragraph of approximately 8 lines, discuss how the city of Cape Town could have prevented the worst effects of flooding in the urban area. How could they have prevented? Ways of preventing flooding, how would they have prevented this scenario of a typical problem of the flood? Right. So we are saying, looking at preventive measures and precautionary measures to a flood. What could have been done? We can look at number one, look at storm water drains so that they can remove the excess runoff through stormwater drains. They must put in place stormwater drains which have got high capacity to take flood water out of the area. Then also prevent development close to rivers. Like the informal settlements, most of them, they develop just close to the rivers. So which those areas are very prone. Then also need to equip people with education, educate people on the dangers of flooding. Look at other aspects like provide formal housing. You can also assist if you provide formal housing. Then you can also look at things like unblocking the pipe systems. Usually flooding will happen because the drainage pipe systems will be blocked by litter, and hence we need to unblock those drains. So we unblock the drains and ensure that there is effective flow of water. And also we can look at flood warning system. They must be in place, flood warning systems. Right, that takes us to the end of this part of our question. This is the end of our question number 2, which is the end of section A out of 120 marks. We just have to discuss through map work section. Unfortunately, we don't have the map for this particular mapped area, but we just want to highlight on how basically you can answer and attempt those questions. But if you see a question which is saying Queenstown is located in the Dash province, that is basic map information that you find here. So it says Queenstown, officially known as Komani, is a town in the Eastern Cape. So you can actually use the map information to find the responses to the given questions. Contour interval on the orthophoto map. We are looking at contour interval on the orthophoto map. When we are looking at the contour interval, we are looking at the difference in height between two contour lines next to each other. And you check on the contour on the orthophoto map, you check the values. We are saying contour interval, these are the contour lines. Let's say this is contour line X, this is Y, this is Z. So we are looking at the difference in the values of this, value of this, value of this, and value of this. If this is a higher ground, we are saying for you to get the interval here, you say the value of Z minus the value of Y. It must be the same as saying the value of Y minus the value of X. And this is a lower ground. That is what you call the contour interval. Then the scale of the topographic map is dash times smaller than this. You know what, that the scale of the topographic is 1:50,000, and compared to the orthophoto, it has a scale of 1:10,000. So the ratio here is 1:5. So the orthophoto is 5 times smaller for that reason. Right, I'll calculate the magnetic declination for the year 2024. Use the steps. You're supposed to use map information provided on the map. At the bottom of your topographic map, before the reference, you see that there's information provided about magnetic declination, about mean annual change. You use that information to substitute on the given steps and be able to use those ones to calculate. Then calculate straight line distance in kilometers between features labeled 6 and 7. What you're supposed to do, if you're supposed to calculate, you are using the orthophoto. We just highlight here. When you are calculating distance on the orthophoto map, place your ruler and actually get your distance. So from the orthophoto, what are you going to do? You're going to say your map distance. You multiply by the map scale. For you to multiply directly, your answer is needed in kilometers. What you have to do here for an orthophoto, your map distance in centimeters, you multiply it by 0.1 kilometers. You get your answer directly in kilometers. If you are using a topographic, you are measuring from a topographic map, present your map distance in centimeters that you would have measured on the ruler and multiply it by 0.5 kilometers. The scale for the topographic is 1:50,000. If you convert 50,000 centimeters to kilometers, it gives us 0.5 kilometers, which is half a kilometer, which is 500 meters. From the orthophoto is 1:10,000. That's the scale. 10,000 centimeters is equivalent to 0.1 kilometers, which is the equivalent of 100 meters. So by multiplying by 0.1 kilometers, you get your answer in kilometers. And also by multiplying by 0.5 for the topographic, you get your answer in kilometers. Name the river flowing in block D1. You are supposed just to highlight and figure out the river. In which direction is the river flowing? You check indicators of direction there of the river flow. Like for example, let's say a river is like this. If there are tributaries joining the river like this, you check where the acute angle is facing. The acute angle is facing to this direction. It means this river is coming from here. It is going in this direction because of the acute angle. And you also check if there's a dam, for example, along the river. We know that the dam wall, it always points to where the river is flowing towards. Water accumulates before the dam wall. It means this river is going that direction. Also check contour lines crossing the river. If you see contour lines pointed like this, crossing the river, it means the contour lines, they point towards where the river is coming from. These contour lines, when they cross the river, they don't cross straight, but they point to some direction. So where the contour lines are pointed towards, it shows where the river is coming from. So those are the indicators that you need to check. Right, would you classify Gitachi as a rural or an urban settlement? You check on the nature of the buildings that you find there and the arrangement of the buildings and the setup. If you see there's a plan, there's a street plan, and then it means it's an urban. If there's no fixed street plan and there are some scattered buildings around, then it means it's a rural. And also check the activities happening around, primary activities for rural and secondary activities and tertiary, if there's evidence for urban settlements. Type of farming, you also check whether it's crop or right. Then those other questions, they relate us to MEMO information that we do not have. Queenstown receives seasonal rainfall. Give one piece of evidence on the topographic map to support this statement. What you need to note there, for an area that receives seasonal rainfall, check clues like dams. If you see there are so many dams in the area, it's an indication that water is a scarce resource in some given season. So dams are there to store water for use during the times of scarcity. Also check on other aspects like some reservoirs. Where there are many reservoirs in the area, it also suggests that the area receives seasonal rainfall. And also check sometimes you can check the majority of the rivers in the area. If you see that the area has got predominantly non-perennial rivers, it's also an indicator that the area runs dry in a given season. Then we go to the GIS, define the concept geographical information systems. Geographical information systems. Right. If you check on that, you look at definition of GIS as a computer-based tool. What is it used for? Which is used for the different purposes of capturing. One, it is also used for storing. It is also used for analysis. It is also used for displaying. All those uses of geographically referenced data or spatial data. So it's a computer tool that is used to capture geographical data. We store it, we analyze it, we display, and also we can manipulate it. All that we use at SGIS. Then we are looking at remote sensing. When we are looking at remote sensing, we are saying we are acquiring, in simple terms, remote sensing, it means acquiring information from a distance. We are getting geographical information without being in contact with the actual space. For example, using satellite images, we can get information across the world through satellite images, but those satellite images won't be physically located on the places, they will be in space. That is remote sensing. List two components of GIS. Components of GIS is made up of components like the hardware. We have components like software. We have the component of the methods that are used. We have the data, it's another component. And also we have personnel or the people. Those are the components. Then lastly, give one line feature and one polygon feature in block D3. What you need to note there is when you are looking at a line feature, we are looking at those features which are presented in a line on the topographic map. Examples of line features, you can have rivers, which can be perennial or non-perennial. We can have features like a row of trees. It's a line. We can have features like hiking trail. The hiking trail is presented as a line. We can have a fence. It's presented as a line. So, and then polygon, these are area features. Area features, you can have examples of cultivated land. Or you can have some non-perennial water. You can have excavations. You can also have features like the symmetries, if they are there. So anything that has got area, an area feature is a polygon feature. Right, that takes us to the end of our discussion, which is our geography paper 2. I hope this discussion is going to assist you in preparing you for your final examinations for paper 2. With that being said and done, I think we can safely conclude that if we utilize this discussion for the sake of preparing for the examination, plus or minus, we are going to get typical questions which are going to be very useful from this discussion that you're going to apply the knowledge in the coming examinations. So I actually encourage you to keep checking and also keep looking at whatever new uploads that will be on the space, and you utilize them for the benefit of your score and your grade at the end of the year. We want everyone on board in the coming grade. So with that being said and done, I can safely conclude that we are done with this discussion of the day. Till we meet again in other discussions, your host in geography. Thank you.